The inside views from an administrator, a former coach, a scout. He's currently a scout. He's an NFL talent evaluator, college football expert. We do LandryFootball.com, the weekly report right here each Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Chris, I hope you've had a great week. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, thanks for having me. As always great to talk football with you.
No doubt. It was another impressive win for Alabama over the Tennessee Volunteers. It's pretty much what we anticipated, but any big thought from your advantage point?
Well, I keep thinking as, I break down Alabama's tape every week, the thing that jumps out at me is, when you start the football season, you normally, not everybody, but a lot of people play a game. Alabama always plays a tough game to start the season, but a lot of people play a game in which is kind of a game where you can kind of get settled in. You play a lot of young guys, and you play a lot of backups, and you get a lot of experience, and that's been the season for Alabama. I mean, it's like they can play at a different level, and most of these, really pretty much all these games are non-competitive, so they can play a lot of guys, and they're just getting better in so many areas. Now, I do think while some people complain about certain things, a lot of it is they're playing so many people that it is hard to have the type of rhythm. They're doing the right thing by playing a lot of people, but they could be dominating even more, believe it or not, if they were doing it for the purposes of just playing their best players. They are getting a lot of people, a lot of work, and it really is going to benefit them not only down the road this year, but down into the next few years. That's what jumps out at me. It's a dominating team that, it seems like they've got 12 running backs they can put out there, and just they all look. They're great to very good to great. I mean, it's just an impressive looking group, and defensively, they've got a lot of answers. This is the team that right now is separating himself from the rest of college football and have been, for quite some time.
Well, and defensively, they're expected to get Deshaun Hand back on the football field for LSU, which is only going to add to this dominance.
Yeah, and all that does is help with the rotation, and they need to ease them back. They can do that if they can play it any way they want to play it, and that's kind of the point is. All that means is an opportunity for somebody else. Coach Orangeburger used to say, Bill Orangeburger used to say, "Hey, it's an opportunity." That was it's an opportunity for someone. And that's the reality of it. It's just, hey, it's the next guy up. You were highly recruited. You were a big-time player. Now it's your opportunity to get your chance, and everybody's trying to get their little bite at the apple to get in taking good advantage of it.
Chris, I'm just curious. A lot of the talk has been about quarterback this week and getting a chance to see a little bit more of Tua Tagovailoa. From your perspective, what do you see in this young man?
Well, it's kind of what I had in mind. One of the many players I had in mind that they're getting a lot of reps with him. I mean, who can get their backup quarterback as many reps as Alabama's been able to get this year? Not even Alabama can do that in a normal year. What I see is a guy that's more and more comfortable. I love what they're doing in that Brian's done a great job with you're talking about staying ahead of the curve. They're running him when you think they're going to throw him, and it's kind of the same thing with Jalen Hurts. They're throwing the football in situations that you think they might run and vice versa. With Tua, I mean, how about that little juke move in the end zone was very impressive, but he's got the ability to throw the football at a different level. And listen, I am not going to be surprised at all if they need to call upon it. I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't use in a change-up mode down the stretch to put him in for a series. I don't think they're going to break a rhythm of the offense, and I don't think that they'll, be in a need to have to bench Jalen. But if they wanted to do something a little different, they're capable of doing it and put him in there. And it's really not like he's the backup quarterback. He's the other quarterback that I think even has better passing skills than Jalen does. So they're in really good shape with a 1-1A situation there.
But you followed Nick Saban. You obviously know him and work with him and understanding him. Is this one of the – because I've called it one of the biggest roster management, and it's not an issue, but when you have this much talent at both quarterbacks, it's certainly someone that's going to have to manage this correct way, because you could let it hurt your locker room. I mean, people pick sides and things like that, but Nick's certainly a master of psychology and managing these type of situations.
Well, I think that, even at the pro level where you have locker room division, it's because you're not playing well. But when you're dominant and you've got two guys that are playing as well, then there's no division. And certainly these kids are, I don't want to use the term program, but they are taught to understand the mission and how the attitude needs to be focused and directed, the energy needs to be directed. I don't think there's any issue with that. I mean, you've got one that's a year older, and that's it. And I think that, from the very beginning, Nick felt like, hey, Tua's not going to – there's no chance of him being redshirted. He's going to play. We're going to need him. We're going to want to play him. And I think all along he had in mind that he was going to play both guys. Now, Jalen is the guy. He's the leader. He's had more reps. He went through, all the trials last year. He's got the greatest confidence of the team, of the two, because he's just been there longer. With Tua, he's proving with every snap that he gets that he's capable of doing it. So, I mean, I say that if something were to happen to Jalen and he goes down and gets injured, then all of a sudden Tua's in there, and I don't think they miss a beat. And that's a very unusual situation to be in. Particularly from the quarterback position on a team like this that relies a lot of their offense runs through the quarterback, and it's not as a distributor as much as it's you've got to defend the run element with both of these guys, and I think Jalen is developing very much as a passer. People that look at it only look at passes completed, and yards. It's not what I look at. When I look at tape is how he throws the football over the middle with more comfort. They didn't do that last year. They didn't feel comfortable with him doing that last year. They're comfortable with him now. He's more comfortable how to look off guys. It's just the interception with Tua in the red zone. Just, hey, it's a bad read, bad decision, but he's the type of guy who can put it behind him. You're going to make those mistakes. You can't worry about mistakes. If you worry about making mistakes, you're never going to get better. It's what you do from learning from the mistakes. So I think they've got a very unique situation in a good way, and that they've got two quarterbacks that they can win. I'd have no doubt in my mind that they could win a national championship with either one right now, this year. Now, it's better to have both, and it's better to have Jalen because I think the run threat and the experience factor, I have to remind everybody that he did lead them on a touchdown leading drive at the end of that game. We tend to forget that. I think they're in really good shape, and I'm impressed with how Jalen has progressed, and I just am more and more impressed. I've certainly saw Tua a lot on tape in high school, but what I see him doing right now is really impressive. This kid can throw it on the move. He's got some dynamic qualities that it's really hard to kind of package right now with the ability to run and throw on the move and even make plays in the pocket. He's got a chance to be a special young quarterback in his own right.
Well, look at Alabama when we talk about improving, and Nick Saban's got these guys so programmed, Chris. I always find it kind of funny when these players arrive, and then like 2 months later, they're programmed, right? Nick Saban programmed these guys. We ask a player on a scale of 1 to 10, judging the first 8 games of the performance, where would they rank it? They're saying about a 5. That they feel like that they can accomplish much more when we talk about improving the little things. Nick Saban's dialed in on those fundamentals. Where do you think this team could take some steps forward in improving, sort of cleaning up their play?
Can you imagine if they set an 8? What type of feedback they'd get coming back if they were voted?
Sure, absolutely,
yeah,
no doubt.
You better believe it. 5 is probably as high as they would go on that scale. Here's the thing. I do think there is room for improvement. It's not that they need to play anybody else. But what I'm saying is just consistency can be improved. Absolutely. They're more talented. They play better. But in terms of kind of playing to their standard, I think they can generate even more pass rush. I think they can improve individually in their ability as bringing edge pressure. I absolutely think they can. I think in coverage, it's been really good, but I think that they certainly can do an even better job underneath in coverage. But it's an elite level. The passing game, they can do a better job. They can do a better job with getting open, particularly against tight coverage, getting off of press coverage. And I think they can do a better job spotting up the football. I think the ball can come out a little quicker. There are areas where they can improve. It's still better than other people that I study on tape, other teams. But can they get better as a team? Absolutely. I've documented that in my tape study all year long. They've gotten better. So I know they're going to get better as the year goes along. It's just that it may not be as noticeable to the untrained eye because they just look at, well, they beat the heck out of somebody week 3. They beat the heck out of somebody now. They're the same. Well, they're not the same. How they're doing it, they're running it the same amount, but how they're doing it has improved, and I think will continue to improve. I don't know that I'd put it at a 5 or an A. I'm not quite sure, but I think they can get better, and that would be concerning for anybody else that has to play them. And I think that the other thing would be the focus that Saban harps on the most is, I don't think they played very sharp against A&M. I don't think for whatever reason they were as sharp as they needed to be. And I see stretches on a couple of series where it's just not there. It's human nature to kind of relax a little bit, and that's what he harps on, to not be that way. And those are the only things that I think, that need to be cleaned up. But to be quite honest with you, what they're doing right now is better than whatever it is, a 5, a 4, an 8, whatever you want to put on it. It's better than anybody by a large margin in the country. But, they're not concerned about, as you know, about being the best team in the country. They're concerned about being as close to their optimal level as they can be, because that's the only variable that they have that could derail them. They can't control how good somebody else is. They can only control how good they are, and if they play their best ball, there's nobody beating this team.
Wow. Now, that's including college football playoffs. If they play up to the standard.
Everybody. That's everybody.
Okay.
That's Georgia. That's Penn State. That's Ohio State. That's TCU. That's Clemson. That's Wisconsin. That's Notre Dame. I go on and on. Nobody's beating this team if Alabama plays the best ball. It's not right now. At this point, the way Alabama's playing, it probably wouldn't be a fair fight. But again, the whole variable is, do they play? They're going to face some teams that put great effort together. You could see a Georgia, a Penn State, a number of teams, an Ohio State put together a great performance. And if Alabama's off their game a little bit, well, then guess what? It's game on. And then there's a chance. Clemson, Bryant's hurt right now. They're not the same team, but they're a talented team that can throw a lot of athletes defensively that could cause Alabama's offense some problems and maybe not be able to dominate at the line of scrimmage. But if Alabama plays their best ball, it's going to be, I don't think anybody beats them. But if you play less than their best, then that's where it becomes, a little bit iffy. And, you put somebody's best game in Alabama's game that's not as good, and maybe they're not as functional on offense, then you got a game. But right now I don't see anybody playing close to Alabama.
LandryFootball.com. LandryFootball.com is the website. We're talking to Chris Landry. Chris, let me ask you this. When you look at LSU, can they present some challenges to have success in Tuscaloosa?
No, not unless Alabama plays poorly. I think that LSU will be aggressive. I think that right now teams are kind of taking the attitude, and let's take A&M, and I think maybe let's look at the possibility of LSU playing an A&M type of game. meaning like A&M played against Alabama. There's not a whole lot to lose. No one expects LSU to do anything. And it's almost like if you can stay within 2 possessions of Alabama, that's a win. There's going to be, I think, an aggressive ability to attack the passing game by LSU on the back end. I don't think the pass rush is nearly as good, but they're going to employ a lot of blitz looks. They like to play a lot of man at LSU. I would expect them, I would advise them to play a little bit more zone, because if you play man against Jalen Hurts, he's going to kill you with his feet. I think there's better chances of maybe LSU causing more problems than other people have. But this LSU offense is not going to be able to run the football consistently against Alabama. They're not going to be consistent enough in the passing game. So the reality is it's going to be maybe typical like other games. No, they're better, I think, LSU right now than Ole Miss and Arkansas. I think it's debatable as to who they're different than A&M. But I think that it's going to be very difficult for them to sustain. They're going to have to get some big plays out of the kicking game and create a short field for their offense. I think Alabama's much better, and I expect them to win and win going away in the second half like they have. And I don't know how much, if it's 14-17, 21-20, I don't know, but I think it'll be decisive. I think they're that much better than LSU. I don't see LSU keeping it as close, just because historically LSU has, people might think, hey, LSU's kind of turned it around. They got it figured out. This is not a very good LSU team. It's an Auburn. The Auburn game was gifted to them. Auburn just collapsed in that game. Florida and Ole Miss are not very good. I think LSU's kind of in the mix of those average teams in the SEC that are not very good. LSU's one of them. And I think comparatively speaking, they're not as good as Auburn, although they beat Auburn. Auburn collapsed. I think that kind of puts LSU kind of where they are. And if Alabama plays their best, it'll be a blowout. If they don't play their best, then it may be, less than a blowout, but a decisive, 14, 17-point victory. That's kind of how I'm seeing the game.
Chris, I know we always do this at the end of the segment, but let's do it at the beginning of the segment. Let me talk about LandryFootball.com and throw it back to you and promote a lot of things that is on that website. A lot of fans can get a little deeper information into the college football game and the NFL game that we love.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, it started about 3 years ago, and it was born out of my parent company, Landry Football Operations, which is a coaching and scouting consulting business that serves NFL teams and college programs. And we thought, what can we do to provide some information, some inside information and analysis for fans? So that's how LandryFootball.com was born, and that's what we do. We take you inside the film room. We break down the college and pro game. We explain what happened, why it happened. It gives you a deep dive into the understanding of the game of football. We like to say if it involves evaluating players, teams, coaches, schemes at the college and NFL level, we do it for you. Evaluating recruiting, evaluating the draft, evaluating free agency, evaluating the college and pro teams as they are, young players, old players, draft eligible, non-draft eligible, NFL players in the league. That's what we do here, break down the players, break down the coaching. We explain how I do my coaching consulting work and evaluating coaches and coaching search work. All those things we provide for you. Got podcasts every Tuesday and Thursday, a lot of free information. To become a member, very simply, we've got a few different plans, monthly, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and it is cheaper than a magazine subscription, as you mentioned, and it gives you an access to an NFL and a college-style scouting and recruiting department, a coaching department. Gives you inside information, what's going on around the college and pro game, inside the coaching offices at different places around the country. So that's what we provide for you. It's a little different look from a coaching and scouting perspective on the college and pro game. So if you like football, you'll love LandryFootball.com.
Well, Chris, you've always got people. I look at my phone during this segment, and we've always got a ton of people that send me text message. And one of the questions came back a couple of minutes ago from a friend of mine that listens every day, and he said, did he really just say that Alabama cannot be beat if they play to their standard? That's what you said, right? That would be considered
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that Alabama would have to lose it right now. Now, as I evaluate these teams every week, if I see a team that is playing at a level to where Alabama is, I'll be sure to tell you. But right now, I'm impressed with Penn State. I'm impressed with Georgia. I'm impressed with how Ohio State's improved. I'm so excited about watching Ohio State, Penn State this week. I see what TCU does with their pattern match, and I know what Clemson's capabilities are. But Alabama right now would have to lose the game. They would have to play poorly, because if they play their best game, there's not anybody in college football this year that's going to play their best game and Alabama's best game and beat Alabama. No, I don't see it right now. Things could change based upon how these teams progress. You never stay the same. You get better, you get worse every week. Players, coaches, that's why you're harping on getting better every day. But no, Alabama's right now a cut above everyone else. And you're going to have to play your best game, and Alabama's going to have to be off their game a little bit to beat them. That's what I think.
What do you see happening in Penn State and Ohio State from your perspective?
Well, I like Penn State better on film to this point, because they not only have, first of all, I think they've been inconsistent in how they run the football, but they've got a great dynamic back in Saquon Barkley. But they've got playmakers in the passing game. I love Trace McSorley. I think he's a playmaker. Running the RPOs, the ability to zone read. He's got great timing. He can make plays in the passing game. He can make plays running the football. Like what this offense has done, I think they've done a very good job. They're very underrated defensively. They are very good. They swarm to the football. Ohio State's been kind of laying in the weeds a little bit. They've not played a tough schedule since losing to Oklahoma. They've gotten better. How much better are they? They look better. They're passing the football better. They're playing better in coverage. But, Ryan, they've also done it against weaker competition. So when people ask me, hey, have they gotten better or it's just weaker competition? Well, the answer is both. They've looked better. They've done things from a technique and an assignment standpoint better. But certainly the talent level of who they've done it against is not as good. We'll find out this week who is definitely the team to beat in the Big Ten. And I expect Ohio State at home to play their best game. And we'll see if Penn State can match it. I think it's a toss-up game. I really do. And as I was getting ready to break down the game on LandryFootball.com, I think I know where I'm going with the pick, but I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still debating a little bit. That's how close it is.
Let me ask you about Notre Dame. Impressive victory over USC. The Irish seem to have found some things that corrected the things since that Georgia game, and they're rolling right now in the top 10.
Let me tell you, everyone, I always laugh because everyone always wants to define a team, how they looked. Well, back when I saw them play against Georgia, or that's what they are. Folks, you never stay the same. Understand that. So you either get better or you get worse. Notre Dame has gotten a lot better. Why? Two things stand out. Their offensive line. Harry Highstead is one of the better line coaches in the country. That Notre Dame offensive line is playing as good as anybody's in the country right now. Wimbush has been a big-time factor for them at quarterback. He's given them great run-pass element. And, people can criticize all they want. Brian Kelly, don't like him. That's none of my business. You can like who you want. I'm just telling you the guy's one heck of a football coach. And he may not handle things in the press conference like people like. That's fine, too, and maybe correct. I just know the guy's a heck of a football coach, and I always laugh when people say, this guy is a bad coach and he's this and that, and then 3 weeks later they're talking about how great he is. It just tells you the credibility of the people that really don't know what they're talking about. Guy's a good football coach. This is a good football team. Mike Elko's done a phenomenal job with this defense all year long. It's a very good team that's going to be quite a matchup this week against NC State. That good, improved offensive line against a very good North Carolina State defensive front that's loaded with NFL-caliber players in that front. maybe a game that wasn't on a lot of people's radar at the beginning of the year. My friend, NC State Notre Dame is big, and the winner is going to at least internally be talking about national playoffs. The loser going to be out. But this, to me, Ryan, this is what makes college football unique. That is the playoff game. That's an elimination game right there this week with NC State Notre Dame. Now, winning it doesn't guarantee you anything. It just guarantees you that you're alive for the next week to go on. NC Notre Dame is I think this is their toughest game the rest of the way. And then obviously they don't have a conference championship game. NC State's got a little bit more left to do there before they control their fate, but still got bigger challenges, I think.
Can Jim McElwain and the Gators present any challenges to Georgia? Is there any way that they can win this football game?
I don't think there's any way they can win it. I think Georgia would have to lose it to kind of use that frame. And so what does that really mean? I think two things that making a case for Florida. It's a rivalry game. I think they're going to play their best game. How do they stay with Georgia and beat them? Well, they're going to have to dominate the special teams factor. They're going to have to flip the field on special teams, create a short field for their offense. They're going to have to win the turnover battle, maybe get points out of the return game, maybe get some points out of the defense. They're going to have to find a way to come out and work the horizontal passing game so that they allows them to run the football against Georgia. I would not recommend coming out thinking you're going to run it on early downs and get into third and short against this Florida defensive front. Not going to happen. They're going to have to be able to attack. They don't have mobility at quarterback, playmaking ability at quarterback. They've got to be able to work the perimeter. If they do those things, they absolutely can make a game of it. Georgia's better. If Georgia plays their best game, Florida can't beat them. Georgia's going to have to play less than their best. We've seen this act before, not with Kirby Smart, but with Georgia going in with a better team and coming out with an L. That is a weird game. I've been to many of them. It's a weird game where the underdog seemingly can make their season with a win. So I think for that reason you give Florida a chance, but it shouldn't be. If Georgia is going to be a championship caliber program, you got to go in and beat a team that, quite frankly, I think they're significantly better than this year.